10 degrees further downwind with a superior speed. In 25 to 30 knots of wind, there aren't any problems. The bows are lifted out of the water by the spinnaker in all conditions. The boat handling is simple. The lowering of the spinnaker is done by releasing one line. Even though the hoist isn't perfect, the extra maneuver is compensated for by a dramatic increase in boat speed. The downwind mark roundings require more team coordination, but the loss in boat speed due to the maneuver is limited. The future of the Tornado as the Olympic catamaran is tied to the adoption of the spinnaker as standard equipment. The need for an on-the-water show that catches the media's eye is undeniable. This need is fulfilled by the Tornado with the spinnaker. The preparation for the Sydney Olympics has to begin with a Tornado spinnaker. The evaluation and research of modifications to the Tornado has to continue at the level of the International Tornado Association. Other propositions, such as a waterproof carbon mast, standardization of certain fittings, such as the mast foot and the rudders, are also being looked at.
Their catamarans into the surf today at Fort Lauderdale to kick off the 1987 Worrell 1000 sailboat race.
That's right. And News 3 reporter Gene Camp and photographer Brian Igelman are in South Florida to cover the race. And as Gene tells us in this report, day one spelled disaster for one of the favorites.
Hours before the race began, team members on the beach, tweaking and tuning, getting their boats ready for the first leg of a 1,000-mile sprint up the coast.
Ready for 1,000 miles?
Yeah, well, 100 today. That's just one day at a time, you know.
Sailing conditions were good, sunshine and a strong breeze, ideal for racing and ideal for testing the technology. Many of these boat designs are experimental and have never been tested under race conditions.
It's not race proven yet, but we're excited about it. I think it's going to be a good boat.
Greg Richardson won the Worrell last year, and now with a new mast design, he and sailing partner Randy Smythe are trying to do it again. Smythe won the race in 1985, and most of his pre-race time this year has been spent on tinkering with what they call a wing mast.
Just had a few underbuilt parts on the mast that put us into a all-night affair last night, playing with the epoxy and such, but I think we're ready now.
As Smythe and Richardson put on the finishing touches, other teams were carrying their boats to the water's edge. At exactly 10 a.m., the race got underway. Within minutes, though, it became clear that Smythe and Richardson, one of the favorites, were in trouble. Literally about 100 yards offshore, the mast on the Domino's boat broke. The sailors were all right. They were able to bring the boat ashore, where they got a closer look at the damage. The mast was badly damaged. For Smythe and Richardson, disappointment and a feeling that the Worrell 1000 may be over almost as soon as it began.
I think we're in trouble. Yeah, I think kind of the end of it for this race.
Think you'll be able to get another mast together?
No, they're impossible.
In Fort Lauderdale, Gene Camp, News 3 Tonight.
Well, there are the British, the French, the Dutch, and now the Russians. The Soviet Union has joined the international field of sailors participating in the Worrell 1000 race.
Well, the catamaran boats, they're arriving in Daytona Beach at this hour, the third leg in the Fort Lauderdale to Virginia Beach race. News 3 reporter Gene Camp joins us live now from Daytona Beach and brings us up to date. Gene?
Ed, the boats are still finishing at this hour. A tough day on the water. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But as we told you a little bit earlier, the Russian team, a lot of respect down here from all of the sailors. They are taking the Russians very seriously indeed.
This four-man Russian team is a new addition to the Worrell 1000. They are experienced sailors, the crew Olympic winners, and the coach specializes in getting Soviet championship teams ready for competition. The crew has never been to the United States before, and communication is sometimes a problem.
They should get something stronger than that.
I know.
15.
After this,
Yeah, but
But you don't have to speak English to know that this stock Tornado catamaran is a fast boat. So far, the Soviets have held on to a first place in their class during this race. 28-year-old Sergei Akuzovov says the Soviet boat is performing well.
Ask them if they're ready and the boat's ready.
Yes, well ready. Yeah, well ready. She said we're all ready.
The Russians say sailing in the Atlantic is a bit different than in the Baltic Sea, where they train. But as the race progresses, they are learning more about their boat and the way it handles on the open ocean. Like most boats in this race, the Russians are hoping for what the sailors call heavy weather, strong winds that will give them more speed.
The Russians did get their wish, along with the rest of the teams today, because there was some pretty heavy weather out there. A thunderstorm rolled into Daytona late this afternoon. We understand 20-knot winds are pushing those boats along at a very good speed. Al Etheridge's boat out of Virginia Beach, the Team Hall Auto World, and Roy Seaman and Al Etheridge finished just a few minutes ago into the surf, we are told. That is their third first-place finish. They have led every leg of this race so far. The next few boats, as we are told, are some distance still behind them. So, Ed and Michelle, it's good news for one of the Virginia Beach teams.
Great,
All right,
Gene.
thank you, Gene. I think it's kind of funny seeing that Russian boat with the beer logo on the side. Should have a bottle of vodka or something. Make it go fast. Leg 5 of that race takes the sailors 122 miles from Jacksonville, Florida to Tybee Island, Georgia. And News 3 reporter Gene Camp has just returned from Jacksonville Beach with a tan. He's with us now to bring us up to date. Welcome back, Gene.
Thank you, Ed. Well, when the sailors pushed off at Jacksonville Beach this morning, there were a lot of red eyes and sunburned faces. The crews had just come off 2 days of rough weather and were preparing for the longest leg of the race. As if spending nearly 9 hours in rough seas with 20-knot winds wasn't enough, the Virginia Beach team Hall Auto World spent most of Wednesday in a drag race with the Russians. Al Etheridge and Roy Seaman pulled ahead near the end and hit the beach first at Jacksonville, extending their lead in the race.
How was it out there?
Cold and long day.
Rough ride.
Not particularly. We had a good duel with the Russians that lasted about 4 hours.
How about the duel with the Russians? That went on for some time, didn't it?
Yeah, it took 6 hours to gain half a mile lead they had.
They got a fast boat.
No, they're good.
About 10 minutes later, an exhausted Soviet team arrived.
How was it out there?
Well,
Lots of wind?
yes.
Rough seas?
And big wave. Oh.
It was also an exhausting day for another Virginia Beach team, Rudy's Restaurant. The weather took a lot out of Jack Ewer and Mike Eason, but even with the lengthy Tybee Island leg still ahead, Ewer said this morning the time to improve their current fourth-place standing is now.
Still got a lot of race left, too.
Oh, yeah. We usually say the race begins at Tybee or the leg after. So today the race begins.
How are you holding up physically?
Physically, I'm doing okay. I think it's becoming a mental thing now. You know, when you start getting tired and you start losing concentration, that's when it really becomes a problem. But physically, I feel pretty good.
The boats are still sailing to Tybee Island, Georgia at this hour. Even with strong winds, the first arrivals aren't expected until around midnight tonight. That's about, well, most of that 122-mile leg is going to be in the dark tonight.
Oh.
An unfortunate note, early this morning, it seems that the Russians who were staying in the hotel last night in Jacksonville, someone apparently broke into their hotel room and stole their camera equipment. And this is the first time that the Russians were in this country, so obviously they had been taking a lot of pictures going up the Florida coast. And they were a little downhearted this morning before they took off out of Jacksonville. It was kind of a very sad note, really.
Yeah.
Okay, that's too bad, Gene. Well, thank you, and welcome back.
Mounting waves made the going tough. Third-place team Gitano had problems at the start. The boat lost both rudders and suffered a 10-minute delay while repairs were made. After getting through the surf, Virginia Beach team Hall Auto World and the Soviets battled it out. The Soviets used the 20-knot winds to their advantage and pulled ahead. The lead held, and the Russians hit the beach first. About 4 minutes later, Team Hall, with Al Etheridge and Roy Seaman aboard, crossed the finish line. A second place in this leg, but overall, the winners of the 1987 Worrell 1000. Perhaps the closest finish of the entire race came today as Team Buzzards Bay edged out Team Rudy's of Virginia Beach by just 6 seconds. 16 boats started this race in Fort Lauderdale. Only 6 boats went the distance. And for the Soviets, newcomers to long-distance sailing, just finishing the race is as important as their fourth-place standing.
We're glad that we can to sail all 13 leg without broken. It's good.
The winners, Team Hall, and for Worrell veteran Al Etheridge of Virginia Beach, only one way to sum up his feelings at the finish line.
Relieved. We were so worried we were going to do something to screw up, and we didn't, and that's what we're happy about. We won. We're happy.
8 to 12 knots, but the breeze is really good, and they can put these boats into motion. There will be spurts where they can hit upwards of 25 to 30 knots. That's quite fast for sailboats on the water. Team Domino is slow but sure working its way down the beach here. That's the red bulk with the wing mast, the white wing mast.
What did that yet?
Слышь, Андрей, можешь Серегу поймать по-английски, может он туда пойдет, или нет? Can just
that's the gate coming? Up to you. Yeah. Okay. Probably be easier for you. Move it.
Because of the fact that this boat is newly designed and it's somewhat experimental, if you notice, it was a lot wider than most of the other boats on the beach. Therefore, it's probably the proper word, it's immensely harder to control in the surf. And today was some of the biggest surf, most rapid fire surf they had to deal with coming up the coast.
That's really got to be right for him.
I think there may have been some damage to the rudders of the boat as it was driven back onto the beach. But to elaborate on it, that is an extremely, extremely difficult boat to sail. It's a very fast machine, but in weather, I know for one, I would be grateful, and the teams would appreciate your support for helping us put on what we hope is what we know is a fine event, one that we hope you enjoy as much as
Congratulations. Thank you very much.
How was it out there?
Sorry.
Fast day.
Быстрый день был.
Быстрый, да.
Yes,
Сильная погода, свежий ветер, большая волна.
very heavy weather, big waves, just rough seas.
Настоящая погода для парусного спорта.
Real weather for sailing, real good weather for sailing.
Good. Для мужчин, что говорится.
Ask him whether he has enjoyed the race.
Вам нравится?
Sergey, 1,000 miles over with now. You guys did very, very well. Fast boat, good sailors. How do you feel?
On first, we're glad that we can to sail all 13 legs without broken. It's good. It's good training and.
What about the water? What about the waves? What about the ocean here compared to what you're used to, compared to Baltic Sea? How is that?
This condition very different from our condition because a big wave near the land. We prefer to sail on Olympic course, triangle, small distance, 2 miles. This leg 60, 100 miles. It's very difficult.
That's another thing. You've never sailed that far, 1,000 miles before. Tiring? Are you tired at the end of this? Every day you were out for many hours, came in late. You get tired? How you feel physically? Tired?
Physical, we are already very good. You can see on the eagle. I think it is enough.
Got to be in good shape.
Good shape? Yeah.